All right, welcome everybody to the Team Wiz podcast. This is the Week 10 NFL podcast. We're going to go over this week's slate, give you all the different tips and tricks that we have in order to win your cash games this week. So, my name is Marty, and I'm here with Kyle. Kyle, how you doing tonight?
Good. How are you guys?
Pretty good. And Pat, how you doing tonight?
I'm great. Ready to talk some NFL, fellas.
Yeah, it should be a good week. I feel there's some pretty good matchups this week and some pretty good plays, so I'm actually pretty excited to get into this here. So we'll just go ahead and dive right into it. Actually, before we do, if you guys have any questions throughout the podcast, feel free to, you can either hit up Pat or Kyle on Twitter. You can hit up Kyle at DFS_WizKyle or Pat at DFS_WizP. Just shoot them a question, and we'll be happy to answer it as the pod goes on. Otherwise, if you're on Google Hangouts, there's a Rubik's Cube-looking object in the upper right-hand corner. Go ahead and click on that. Click on the Q&A, fill out a question, and we'll be happy to answer it for you. So with that,
quick question: did you guys retweet my links?
I have not, but I will do it as we're about to break it open this first game here. First game we have on the slate is Detroit versus Green Bay. We have Green Bay favored by 11.5, and we have a pretty high over/under of 49. What do you guys think about this game? What are we liking from it?
I'll let Kyle get a start on this one.
Are we on Detroit and Green Bay?
Yeah.
I like Aaron Rodgers against the weak Detroit secondary. I don't really know who to go towards for receivers. Rodgers has been spreading the ball around very well, and for cash games, I just don't know that I can play receiver from them.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, Cobb's been looking good, but even Adams is now getting into the mix a little bit more, and he used to be able to rely on James Jones for touchdown, and he hasn't been scoring as much. So, yeah, I agree with you. It's a little tough to decide on wide receiver in this game.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I did notice a few trends going on with the Packers wide receivers through my research this week. James Jones and Devontae Adams, like you said, Marty, came back this past week and got in the mix a little bit, but they mainly stick to the outside, which will be James Jones will be primarily matched up against Rasheed Mathis, who is not a bad matchup, actually a pretty good matchup for him. He's been burnt in the past, but he's shown some good skills at times. At Devontae Adams, we'll primarily see Slay, who's been graded out very good this year. But Cobb primarily works in the slots, and he'll see one of the worst slot cornerbacks in the league, and Cronje Diggs. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, and Josh Wilson. Josh Wilson's actually one of the worst slot corners in the NFL. But like you guys said, it's just that Rodgers spreads the ball out so much that you can't really trust him for cash.
Right.
That to me makes Cobb like a very good tournament GPP play. But then if you just want to get a piece of all three of these guys, you can just take Aaron Rodgers and roll him out. And I know a lot of people say, well, I've got to pair a wide receiver with my quarterback. But a way to differentiate yourself in tournaments would be to either take Cobb alone or just roll out a naked Aaron, man. Just do it. Don't be afraid.
Naked Aaron, huh?
Yes, sir.
And Kyle, or Pat, you talk a lot about naked guys on this podcast.
Yeah, I don't know what's up with that, man. But I just try to think differently than most people do, and I want to get a little different roster construction, I guess, going in tournaments. If a naked quarterback wins me several $1,000s, I don't care what we talk about on this podcast.
Right. Yeah, I'd be happy with that. That's definitely a good way of thinking as far as GPP goes. What do you guys think about James Starks in this one? He's been announced as the starter. On FanDuel, he's priced pretty low at $6,000. The Lions have been known to give up quite a few yards on the ground. What do you think? Is he a good play this week?
He's still James Starks. Even when he was a starter a few years ago, He just wasn't a talented guy. Detroit is pretty bad against the run, but I think there's better options elsewhere.
I agree. It's tough to trust these NFL coaches. McCarthy came out this week and said that Starks was the man. He was going to be the lead back, but you never know what they're going to do. They are favored by 12, so I mean this is a good offense. They are going to be scoring a lot. They are going to be near the goal line. If we do get a lot more clarity, and we know for sure that he is going to be the lead dog going into this game, then yeah, he makes for a pretty high floor, high ceiling play. I don't know if you all rostered Jeremy Langford last week and were part of the crowd who were just on ultimate full tilt when what's his face came out for the Bears. Man, I almost lost my lunch, dude. But
Yeah.
they're favored by so much here. I actually like the Packers defense in this one.
Yeah.
They're one of my favorite defenses of the week. Detroit's been giving up at least around 3 to 5 sacks a game. They haven't been giving Matthew Stafford time to throw. That leads to interceptions. That leads to all sorts of things. And we've seen the Packers defense at home in the past at Lambeau Field have chances to take interceptions back to the house.
That's true. Yeah, I think they're priced up a little bit this week, but yeah, I agree with what you said. I think it's a pretty good defense this week.
On DraftKings, they're about the middle of the pack. I think on FanDuel, they're one of the higher priced defense teams there. They're definitely in play.
Thanks for the comment, Jeffrey. Thanks for watching the show as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Much appreciated. All right, guys. Anything else from this Detroit Green Bay game? Anything on the Detroit side of the ball?
No.
Pretty
Game
simple.
blowout written all over it.
Blowout, yeah. Stay away.
I could see Calvin Johnson and some GVP just because they're going to be chucking the ball up to him.
Yeah.
You're going to be playing from behind in this game. He's going to see a lot of targets in this game.
I agree.
All right, let's move on. Next game we got here, we have Dallas versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Bucs are favored at home by 1.5, and we have a pretty low over/under 43.5. From the Dallas side of the ball, is there anybody that we can trust on this side?
Hell no.
Not for cash. No. I liked Dez last week for GPPs, and I actually put him in a couple. Too bad they were only in low dollar entries because he ended up having a very solid game. I like him even more this week. We've seen Drew Brees and Brandon Cooks, what they did to this Tampa Bay defense. This is a pretty great matchup for him. The Tampa Bay corners, they actually swapped out. They took in the middle of the game last week. They took their starters out and just changed their whole rotation out last week. So he could eat. The thing is, he's got Matt Castle throwing him the ball.
Yeah, that's the tough part. Castle hasn't been too productive with either wide receivers. I mean, the only person that seems to be getting any passes thrown his way from Castle is Witten, and even in a situation like this, I don't really trust it. But what do you guys think about McFadden? It seems like he's getting over 25 touches per game, and his salary is not too high. Could he be in play here?
Bucks run defense is a lot better than most people think. If the Cowboys do any damage, it's going to be through the air.
I agree. It's a tough matchup, but I was talking with Kyle before we started. This week isn't as obvious and isn't as chalky as all the other weeks. I mean, there is a lot of chalk out there, but this week you really got to do your research. You really got to be careful, and you really got to load your lineup with high floor guys. And I think with McFadden being the only dog in the house that he offered, getting, like you said, more like 24 carries a game, he offers a pretty high floor. And I mean, they're projected to score some points, so there's a good chance he's going to be part of it. And maybe not on FanDuel, but on DraftKings, his price is still super low. If you want to pay up at other positions like quarterback or wide receiver, then he's definitely in play, I think. But he's not. Yeah. He's not one of my top plays for sure.
If I'm rostering a running back from this game, though, it'll be on the other side of the ball in Doug Martin. The Cowboys are very good against the pass, and I don't see Mike Evans doing much damage. Vegas does project the Buccaneers to win this game, so game script is in Muscle Hamster's favor, but and then as well, the Cowboys haven't been that good against the run.
They've actually been the worst in the NFL over the last few weeks. You know, with the most fantasy points and the most yards per game and yards per carry. I was pretty shocked when I saw that. One thing is though, they play slow. They'll try to grind it out and keep the ball out of Tampa Bay's hands. But I could see Levy Smith doing the same thing on the other side. I do like Doug Martin a lot this week, but I've played him so many times, you just don't know if you're going to get good Doug or bad Doug. His volume is there, 20 to 26 touches a week. He'll see work in the pass game as well. The matchup is great for him. I don't know if I can trust him yet in cash, but, man, he's the upside. The sky's the limit in this one for Doug.
Yeah, this is the matchup here. The season's coming to an end. It's a contract year. I know Doug Martin knows that the end of the season is coming. They know they're not going to make the playoffs. His career is on the line. The future of his career is on the line for these next few weeks.
It's a good point.
Yeah, that's true. The only other thing I'd point out in this game is you talked about Mike Evans a little bit, and I know he had a pretty horrible game last week. I mean, he had 6 drops, which is the most in quite a long time. I think over 2 decades. But he also had 19 targets. So 20 targets.
20. Yeah.
20 targets. So I mean, Winston is obviously looking his way. I think a lot of people will be off of him just because of his bad performance. And he's not priced too high either. That it's something to look towards for this game. Pat, I don't know if you know offhand who he might be going against.
Scandrick, right?
Let me check. I do have that pulled up right here.
Yes.
No, he will see a lot of Morris Claiborne, who is actually pretty.
He's a safety, isn't he?
Yeah, but Mike Evans, they move around quite a bit, so he'll see Morris Claiborne more often than he'll see Jones or who else? Yeah, Skendrick or Brandon Carr. So who plays the opposite side. Yeah. So I mean, it's not a bad matchup for him. Morris Claiborne's been burnt. Out of those 3 guys, he's the easiest matchup. Just the thing is, like you said, with the 6 drops, but the 20 targets, man, that just tells me, a lot of people are going to be looking at last week's performance and see, man, his game could have been huge. He dropped like a 70-yard, it could have been a 70-yard bomb, and he was wide open and just dropped it, fell through his hands. And a lot of people are going to go and look at last week's game long, like, oh, he didn't do that great, so, and fade him. But to me, that makes for a great GPP play right there.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yep, agreed. All right, let's move on. Next game, we have Carolina versus the Tennessee Titans. Carolina Panthers are favored 5.5, and we have an over/under of 44. What do you guys think from this game? Anything that jumps out at you?
Who are we on? I was trying to fix my mic.
Carolina and Tennessee. I initially look at this game.
It's a super slow game.
Yeah. No one really. Carolina's defense. We saw last week. Aaron Rodgers exposed it through the air, through the slot with Randall Cobb. There are 2 outside corners, and Norman and who I forget who their other outside corner is. It's Josh Norman and Brandon Carr. No, not Brandon. Charles Tillman. Sorry. They're both really good, but Ben Workey, whatever his name is, the slot corner is just god awful. But that puts Harry Douglas working against him for Tennessee, and I don't think any of you guys are going to want to put real cash money that you have earned on a guy named like Harry Douglas. So other than that, I can see maybe Cam having a good game here with Tennessee being so bad versus the run. But man, it's just there's cheaper options in better spots, I think.
Yeah.
I agree. This game is pretty much a pass for me. I don't really have any great plays on this game.
Yeah, I thought this game was a game ever since I even looked at the slate.
This is my notes on that game. Blank.
Yeah. All right, let's move on then. Next game.
No nakeds in your notes for that?
Actually, Cam was the only one, so naked Cam. You know,
But you've like a lot of naked cams this year.
man. I mean, he has a high floor. You know, runs the ball at least 10 times a game. So
Yeah,
there's no other quarterback you can say does that.
true. All right, let's move on to the next game. Then we have the Bears versus the Rams. Rams are at home, favored by 7, and we have a over/under of 42. From the Chicago side of the ball, I read today that Alshon Jeffrey was a little injured in practice yesterday. I think he was a little injured again today. Do you think he can repeat what he did last week?
Nope.
No.
I don't think so either. On the Chicago side of the ball, is there anything that jumps out at you at all? Can Langford do what he did last week?
Not a soul.
No.
Soul on that team.
This St. Louis defense is elite, man. A lot of people.
Especially at home.
Yes, especially at home. Run defense, pass defense. I mean, they've been shutting down everyone. With this low total, Bears on the road. The only play for the Bears side would be the Rams defense. I mean, I think a guy like Jeffrey on a PPR site could be in play if he gives it a go, just because based on sheer volume. In the weeks he's been back with Jay Cutler, you're looking at 11, 15, and 16 targets. So I mean, he's shown the ability to burn even the best corners in the NFL. But Jay Cutler's not the type of quarterback that can throw him open. Jeffrey's just the kind of guy that gets open and goes and gets the ball. So I don't know. I don't love it, but the volume's there. On the other side, though, Bears defense is they're giving up the 6th most fantasy points against the run. Todd Gurley favored at home. Jeff Fisher's the kind of guy that even if they get down, I looked it up earlier today, in games they've been trailing, they still run the ball like 70% of the time. So he's going to see at least 24 carries in this game. He's a beast, and he's just going to eat.
Yep.
Yeah.
Todd Gurley, one of the plays of the week.
Yeah.
Stacking him with defense, that running back defense stack, I think it's pretty good. They're both pretty high priced, but you could get the production out of both of them.
And who is it? Somebody on the St. Louis side, one of their wide receivers is hurt this week.
Well, that one guy got suspended.
Is it Britt?
No, they just signed Wes Welker. So
yeah. Well, he won't play this week. Who was it that got suspended though? Was it Britt?
No, Bailey.
Stedman. Yeah. With him out, and Britt was. I saw somebody. I thought it was Britt that wasn't practicing yet this week. That just pretty much leaves Tavon Austin. And you were talking about that running back defense stack, which we all like. Tavon Austin, the way they've been using him in the red zone, or the targets he's been getting, they've been using him, out of the backfield as a running back. And I also saw an interesting stat today. Only 5 teams in the NFL have given up more punting yards, return yards to punt returners than, I can't talk right now, than the Bears. So they're giving up this 5th most punting return yards in the NFL. So and they do have a lot of those guys on special teams as well. So obviously they do if they're giving up that many yards. So if you're looking for that double dip combo with Tavon Austin, then fire up those punting retards and get him in your lineups, guys.
Are you thinking about punting retards or what?
Sometimes I want to when I put in good plays in my lineup. When I put guys like this in my lineup and they just don't pan out, sometimes I want to punt a retard. But
mental note for the week, guys: punt all the retards.
No, they've been giving up a lot of punt return yards. They're the 5th most in the NFL. And he's got a great matchup on the corner as well versus McManus. So Tavon Austin makes for maybe not a cash game play just because they won't have to throw it a lot, but definitely a GPP double dip with the Rams D. Mario, I know how you like to double dip with the Rams D.
Yeah, yeah. Double dip on the Rams D. I'm all about it.
All right, guys, grow up. Let's move on.
Yeah, let's move on. Next game we have here is could be a pretty good one. We have the Saints versus the Redskins. Saints are favored by 1, and we have a high over under of 50. So Pat, going on to the Saints side of the ball, can Drew Brees do what he did last 2 weeks really? Can he duplicate that? And if so, who's he going to throw to?
Man, those are both great questions. I do think going against this terrible pass defense, both these teams have terrible pass defense, so this game will definitely be a shootout. It definitely will go back and forth. I just don't think he'll have to, with the Rams also giving up quite a few yards and fantasy points to the running back the last few weeks. The Redskins aren't the stout run defense that we thought they were to begin the year. So I just don't know that he'll have to continue to air it out. This game really, I don't think will be as a high shootout as Vegas is projecting here, just because the Redskins aren't an elite passing offense.
Yeah, I was pretty shocked to see the over-under. Jordan Reed and Deshaun Jackson are both healthy though, with Pierre Garçon, so I could see the Redskins putting up some offense against these Saints.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I don't know what offense couldn't the way that they've been playing the last few weeks. They've been giving up. I saw it in the NFL the most yards after the catch so far this year. So guys, high volume guys like you said, Kyle Jordan Reed, who gets targeted early and often in the offense. He makes for an elite play. He's my number one tight end cash game, a GPP play. He's one of those guys that he's in a spot just like Delaney Walker was last week, versus this defense where you don't want to fade him. You don't want to miss out on this elite spot. But what do you guys think about since the Saints being favored, maybe taking a little Ingram and Cousins? What about Cousins and cash?
I love Ingram, and I actually thought about Cousins and cash just because he's so cheap. And this Saints defense, it doesn't seem to matter who's playing against them. They're having big games. If you look at their game logs for the quarterbacks against the Saints, it's crazy to see some of the names that had big games against them. Eli Manning being one who threw 7 touchdowns and then turned around the next week and had a dud.
Yeah. What do you think, Marty, on the Saints side of the ball, man? Who's Breeze going to be throwing it to?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough call. I mean, I feel like I'm wrong every week because I'll pick Snead and then it's Watson. I'll pick Watson and then it's Snead, or maybe it's Cooks, or he seems to have been working better with Cooks lately. But actually, you mentioned Ingram, and that's actually a play that I actually really like this week. The Redskins have actually given up the 4th most rushing yards per game this year. And he does catch the ball out of the backfield as well. So especially for a site like DraftKings, I think this could be a scenario where he catches a lot out of the backfield, run for some yards, and may even sneak in for a touchdown. So his price point, I like Ingram this week.
I do as well, man, especially after last week. He was highly owned. Everyone was on him. I believe we played him in some 1 p.m. only slates. And he kind of burned us. I mean, he's one of those guys kind of like McFadden. He's the only dog in town where he's going to get all the volume. So he gives you a pretty safe floor. But with a lot of people being on him last week, and then him not hitting pay dirt with the Saints, getting all their touchdowns through the air, I think he'll be a little bit lower on this week. So I think he makes for a great play. But through the air, Brandon Cooks is going to see Chris Culver, who has just gotten toasted this year, over and over and over. And the last few weeks, like you said, Marty, they've kind of been working Cooks in a little more. They get him the ball, and screen passes. So basically it's like running plays a lot. PPR sites, DraftKings. He's going to see high volume. But I just don't think this game is going to be as high scoring as Vegas is projecting, because neither of these offenses are elite, even though these defenses aren't. So,
Yeah. What do you guys think about Matt Jones?
he makes for an interesting play, especially on PPR sites with them projected to be trailing, but only by 1 point. The Saints have actually been pretty good against the run, but with him catching passes out of the backfield, I don't hate the play.
Didn't Morris even end up with more carries last week too?
No, Matt Jones had 75% of the carries and also had all the goal line attempts. He's super cheap too for a running back that's getting that amount of carries.
That smells like a great GPP play then.
Yeah. Agreed.
Anything else from this game?
That's it.
That's it for me. Yeah, I just really like Jordan Reed this week on the Redskins side of the ball. On FanDuel is at 5,800. I think he's priced pretty well. Especially if he gets a touchdown, pretty quickly can hit value. So I like him quite a bit this week.
Severely underpriced on DraftKings.
Yeah, definitely on DraftKings.
4,600.
All right, let's move on to Miami versus Philadelphia. Philadelphia is favored by 6 in this game, and again, we have a pretty high over/under of 49. What do you guys think? Is this a game? Do you think we'll get up to 49 points in this game?
Man, I do. With how Miami's been playing recently, I really want to play Lamar Miller just because he's so hot. The Philadelphia Eagles are pretty good against the run, though. But I do think he'll have his chances to break a big play as he's getting so much usage.
Yeah, he definitely makes for a great play. But yeah, I'm with you, man. I think this one hits the over under here. If not goes over.
But it's so hard to gauge who's gonna be getting the fantasy points here. It's so hard. Like I said, the Eagles are good against the run, not bad against the pass. So, I mean, it could be Jarvis Landry, it could be Lamar Miller. And then on the other side of the ball, it's kind of hard, too, with Jordan Matthews having the poor matchup, and he's really that whole offense. The Dolphins are pretty bad against the run, but on the flip side, the Eagles spread the ball out with all their running backs, so that kind of sucks as well.
Actually, I love DeMarco Murray in this spot. I think he's cash game viable. Last week he got 20 carries and saw 4 targets out of the backfield, so you're looking at 20 to 24 touches. They do
enough, though?
Yeah, for his price in this matchup, I do think 20 to 24. I mean, that's about as high as you're going to get with running backs this week, other than guys that are in worse spots, with Miami giving up the second most fantasy points and yards to running backs. They do look to get Ryan Matthews going a little bit, but he's only seeing 5 to 8 in some games. In the last few weeks, that has got really tapered off with Murray's performance last week. After Chip Kelly saw what he did. I mean, he's going to ride the hot hand. And Kyle, you brought up a good point. The Miami pass defense does present some tough matchups in spots with, Eric Grimes, I believe, covering one of the outside corners. But for the guys in the slot, which is Jordan Matthews, he's going to see a lot of his snaps versus Bryce McCain. Brent Grimes is the guy on the outside, and Jamar Taylor. Jamar Taylor will be matched up against Riley Cooper. Jamar Taylor has Pro Football Focus's bottom 5 in DVOA versus the pass. So I love me some Riley Cooper for GPPs. He's got a great matchup here. He's going to be super low owned with Jordan Matthews and Nelson Aguilar. Nelson Aguilar will see all of his snaps versus Brent Grimes. So with those two guys having the 2 worst matchups and everybody being on Murray for the run game in this, I think Riley Cooper could go low owned and shoot you in top of your GPPs.
And Pat, while you're looking at that, who do they project to have on Jarvis Landry on the other side of the ball?
Going against Jarvis Landry, he'll see most of his snaps against Malcolm Jenkins, who is Philly's best cover guy. Kenny Stills will see Nolan Carroll. My man Toast. I don't know if you guys know who Toast is.
Maxwell.
Yeah, I just look at him and he looks like he's just toast. The dude is burnt.
Yeah.
He is just burnt. He'll be going against Rashad Matthews, man, and I don't like Rashad Matthews' volume for cash, just because he doesn't see the targets that like a Landry does out of the slot. But man, if you watch the Dolphins play, Tannehill throws the deep ball. He can throw a pretty deep ball, and Rashad Matthews can run some nice routes. I don't. Man, if I'm a betting man, I'm going to put some money on Rashad Matthews, toast for an end zone this week.
Okay. All right. All right. Anything else from this game, guys?
Nope. DeMarco Murray is probably the only person I'll even think about for this game.
Yeah, and Riley Cooper for
high total.
And Rashad Matthews.
All right. Next game we have is the Browns versus the Steelers. Steelers are favored by 5.5. Over under 41. So in both of these teams have a low-valued quarterback, whether it be Manziel or McCown, versus Landry Jones with Roethlisberger being out. So I think unfortunately that kind of ruins the value of Antonio Brown, who had a humongous game last week. But knowing that. How does that affect the offensive side of the ball for both teams? Is there anybody from the offensive side of the ball that you can pick out here that you like?
I love D'Angelo Williams this week against the poor Browns run defense. I think they're going to look to run the ball a lot more this week. D'Angelo Williams is a little older. He's 32 years old now, but he's fresh.
Hey, watch out. I'm 32.
Exactly. But he's fresh. He sat on the sideline a lot of this season. He did play last week, but 3 games he's played in this year. He's still fresh, and good matchup here. Good price for him as well.
Yeah, good matchup. High volume. He's the only guy they got. I started thinking about it a little bit and thought that maybe. With Landry Jones being a quarterback and Big Ben being hurt, that Cleveland might just load the box, load it up and try to stop the run. But Kyle brought up a good point before we started that they'd try to do the same thing as Baltimore. And Justin Forsett put up like 30 fantasy points, even without scoring a touchdown. I think he maybe got a touchdown at the very end of the game.
And that was with a team that had nobody as a threat on the outside. You cannot load the box up against a team that has Martavis Bryant, Antonio Brown, Heath Miller. It doesn't matter who's playing quarterback. You cannot load the box against a team with weapons like that.
I totally agree. This sets up for a great spot for D'Angelo Williams, and you bring up a good point with those weapons on the outside. Even though Landry will be the one throwing them the ball, we've seen in prior weeks with Big Ben being out that Landry, has been really showing some chemistry with Martavis Bryant, and I got to thinking about that, and with them running the second unit earlier in the year, especially when before Martavis Bryant was cleared to play, that he probably saw a lot of work in practice with Landry, so they definitely have that trust there, and he's shown that he looks his way when he gets in trouble. So it's not really a spot where they'll have to be throwing a lot, but Cleveland's pretty banged up in the secondary. Joe Hayden hasn't been as good as he's been in years past, and they've had lots of injuries here. So you can definitely fire up Martavis Bryant. I don't think I'll have him in cash, but GPPs, feel free.
I'll actually have Antonio Brown in a lot of GPPs. The NFL is really about recency. I know in the past, Landry Jones has had that chemistry with Martavis Bryant, but I watched this game last week, and I know Landry Jones was watching this game last week, and I was impressed. But with Antonio Brown's performance, I know Landry Jones was impressed. like I said, it's all about recency. And after seeing what he did last week with Big Ben at quarterback, you know he's going to want to throw to him.
That's a good point.
Yeah, what do you guys think about the Steelers' defense here, especially if Manziel starts?
Man,
They're just so bad against the pass.
yes. I actually, if McCown starts, I actually would be willing to take McCown and some GPPs after seeing what Derek Carr did last week versus them.
Yeah.
And if McCown starts, that makes Gary Barnidge with Steelers being exposed to tight ends week in and week out. That makes Gary Barnidge, especially on DraftKings where he's 4,900. It puts him in play for cash games. I don't know what his price is on FanDuel GPPs. I mean, we've seen him have 2 touchdown upside with McCown. But if Manziel starts, man, he's all about the Benjamin.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's right.
Money Manziel, it just makes sense.
Yeah, man, I hate that guy. I wish the NFL. I wish him and Greg Hardy would just get kicked out of the NFL together and go have a party together and cry themselves to sleep. I can't stand both of those guys. They're worthless human beings, but they got talent. So
yeah,
more worth than any of us have.
So tilting, so tilting.
All right, guys, let's move on to our next game here. We have the Jaguars versus the Ravens. Ravens are favored by 5.5 with an over/under of 47.5. On the Jacksonville side of the ball, Kyle, who are we thinking we like here?
On the Jacksonville side of the ball, I really like Allen Robinson, especially if Hearns does not play here. Do we have any word on that? I saw he was questionable early in the week.
He's playing.
He's playing. Okay. I still like Allen Robinson here, and I also like Allen Hearns if he's playing.
Yeah, Allen Robinson actually he's averaging about 10 targets per game, and the Ravens are actually giving up the second most fantasy points to wide receivers. So Allen Robinson is still another number 1 wide receiver that's not being priced high enough. So he's, especially on FanDuel, he's at 7,500. He's slowly creeping up there, but he's still not at the top, given the production that he gets. So I definitely like him this week.
Yeah, he's definitely underpriced.
Yeah.
This is one of my favorite games. This is my game of the week right here. Both of these pass defenses are terrible. I saw Baltimore favored by 5.5, and I was just like, well, what's going on here, man? I really think, and I never thought I'd say this coming into the year, that Jacksonville was a better offense than Baltimore, but they definitely are. They have the weapons on the outside, especially with Steve Smith going down. I love Blake Bortles, my favorite QB of the week, especially price considering. He's been throwing a ton. They do like to try to get T.J. Yeldon involved in the run, but they haven't been too successful. Their offensive line isn't that great, but they have found enough time to let Blake throw. And while he's not just a superior real-life quarterback, he's been very good for fantasy purposes. I think we've played him in cash a few times this year, and he's treated pretty well.
His price is way too good. He's been a top 10 performer 5 of the 7 weeks, posting top 10 fantasy points in each of those weeks. And at that price, he makes for a great point per dollar play. And the volume is there.
Absolutely, man. He's one of my plays of the week. And, yeah, like you said, Marty, Allen Robinson's been seeing like 10 targets a week, but Hearns has also been seeing 8 to 9.
Yeah.
I like both these guys. If you can't fit in Robinson, Hearns makes for a great play in tournament stacks. I'll have several tournament lineups with all 3 of them, with the Bortles, Hearns. I never thought I'd load up on Jaguars like this. This is just such a great spot for these guys.
My favorite receiver here of this game, though, is actually on the other side of the ball with Kamar Aiken. He saw 25% of the targets last week, the last time they played without Steve Smith. Vegas obviously likes the Ravens to score a lot of points here. It's going to be a shootout, and I think Kamar Aiken is the guy that's going to do the damage for the Ravens at a very good price as well.
Yeah, he should see a lot of the targets. The only other receiver that you can even think of is actually their tight end, Crockett Gilmore. He started off really hot at the beginning of the season, hasn't really picked up since he's been back from his injury. But what do you guys think? Is this an opportunity for him to kind of bounce back here?
Could never play a guy with that name.
I won't show any bias. This is definitely a good spot for him to bounce back. Jacksonville has been burned by tight ends. They're not the worst, but they're not the greatest either.
Yeah.
It's just too. You don't know who's going to get the targets here. There's nobody else other than Kamar Aiken, like Kyle said. I mean, Marlon Brown, Chris Gibbons. I mean, who are these guys? Yeah, you don't exactly. You don't really know. So I mean, I really won't go. And Jacksonville's been so terrible against the pass, and a lot of people I think are going to go look at fantasy points against and load up on force set here. Jacksonville is actually the one of the best run defenses in the NFL. They're actually allowing just a tad over 3 yards per carry, which is the best in the NFL. The Broncos are right behind them. That kind of puts things in perspective there, and you're probably just like, what? If you want to go check me, but that's correct. So I'm totally off for setting this matchup. This right here has a wild west shootout. It's just on the Baltimore side. I can't trust a guy like Kamar Aiken. I mean, he's shown he can do what he's shown some flashes in the past, but I just don't know. I'd rather take my chances on the Jacksonville side. But for GPPs, with us not knowing what's going to go on the Baltimore side with Crockett or Kamar, I haven't heard a whole lot of people being on Flacco this week. What do you guys think about Flacco for a tournament lineup?
So certainly not wacko for him this week, but I think Vegas, like you said, Vegas projects them to score a good amount of points. So it's either going to come from Forsett or Flacco's going to be a part of it. So from a GPP standpoint, sure, why not throw out a lineup or two with them, stack them with Aiken or Gilmore. But for cash games, I wouldn't consider it.
No naked Joe?
No naked Flaccos.
I actually think that's a great way to start a tournament lineup, is with a naked Joe. Who else is going to do that but my crazy ass?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Anything else from this game?
No, I'm good there. Next game we have Minnesota versus Oakland. Oakland is favored by 3, and we have over under 44. Let's start off with the Minnesota side of the ball. Bridgewater was hurt in the last game, had a concussion, but as of today, it looks like he's probable to play. With that being the case, does that kind of put you at ease and feel better about Stephon Diggs this week?
Love Diggs this week.
Yeah, he's one of my top plays of the week with wide receivers. I was telling Kyle before we started, there's not a whole lot of wide receivers I'm just in love with or feeling comfortable about, but with his price and him just showing all the talent in the world, and with a guy like Mike Wallace, who spent some time in Pittsburgh. I love that sound effect. Why couldn't we have that before we started?
And why'd you use it on Mike Wallace? All the players that use that on.
Show. I don't even know where that's coming.
Wallace, of all players. No, but I was going to say Mike Wallace spent some time in Pittsburgh, and now he's teammates with Diggs, and he made an early comparison in the year of Diggs to Antonio Brown, and I'm not saying that Diggs is Brown, but I do know Diggs is talented. But the Vikings have noticed that he's talented as well, and they're kind of using him like Brown. They move him all over the place. He plays on the outside. He plays in the
I don't even know where that's playing from. What the?
That's amazing. But yeah, he moves all over the place. So he's going to see some DJ Hayden. He's going to see some David Amerson and some Nico Thorpe. Nico Thorpe. I don't know if you guys watched the Raiders-Pittsburgh game last week, but Antonio Brown walked these guys around the field like he was walking a dog on a leash. So, I mean, any of these three, especially Nico Thorpe and DJ Hayden, man, I feel sorry for them this week. Stephon Diggs, he's one of my top overall plays of the week.
What about AP? He looked a little bit better last week. Do we think is he back? Is he going to start putting up some points again?
These Raiders are tough against the run.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're one of these funnel defenses, man. We've seen it week in and week out where they get involved in these shootouts because they have a good line, they have great linebackers, but man, I look at these names in their secondary and I want to just write them down on my prayer list.
Yeah, exactly. And then moving on to the Oakland side of the ball, it's been fun watching the Raiders actually this year. It sounds weird to say, but it's been fun watching them. Murray's been playing really well, but more importantly, Crabtree and Cooper paired with Carr have just been amazing. Seems like game after game, and they're still not priced too high either. So, what do you guys think in this matchup? Is this a good matchup for the Oakland wide receivers?
No. Very bad matchup, but I will be throwing them in a GPP. We saw what they did against the Jets. Vikings, very good defense, but they are not the Jets. And if the Raiders can do that against the Jets, why not? Why not against the Vikings?
Mm-hmm. This is actually a lot better matchup than a lot of people think. Fantasy points would not suggest that. But individually wise, Kyle's familiar with Xavier Rhodes and Captain Munnerlyn. Munnerlyn is the best cover guy that the Vikings have, and why they're wasting him in the slot, I have yet to figure out. I've watched a little bit of tape.
Xavier Rhodes?
Yes, he is. Xavier Rhodes is just one of those household names that's been good in the past, but he's getting up there in age, and he's actually on this team. Graded out this year the worst cover corner on this team this year.
He's defending the best receivers.
Well, that might be so, and he'll see a lot of Raleigh Cooper this week. And if you watched, Amari Cooper, sorry, if you watched Amari Cooper last week, he juked and jived over that field and made guys look silly. I don't think that he'll have a problem doing the same thing against Xavier Rhodes. And Michael Crabtree, man, this dude's just looked uncoverable. He's just been catching his hands. It's been crazy. The coaching staff loves him. They want to get him the ball. I think this is actually a pretty good matchup for these guys. I'm not going to go here in cash because I don't see the need, but I will definitely have some exposure of Derek Carr and these two guys in some GPPs.
Yeah, and Crabtree
in some GPP, like you said. Won't even think about them in cash. I do like Kyle Rudolph as well on the Viking side of the ball. I did talk to him at the game the other night, and I told him he better go off next week. I really did. Sat right behind him last week.
Yeah, man. The Raiders have been poop against tight ends all year long, but the problem is the dude's just been blocking a lot. They've been asking him to block, so this could be a week he goes off and wins somebody a GPP, man. You never know.
Yep. I agree. The only other thing I was going to say about Crabtree is, again, he's priced so low. Last week he was at 5,800 on FanDuel. He's still only at 6,400 on FanDuel. Looking over all the receivers, only LaFell at 6,200 has any value, anything lower than Crabtree. So he's definitely somebody I think you can plug into your lineups and feel pretty good about the production at his price.
I agree.
All right, let's move on to Kansas City versus Denver. Denver is favored by 5.5, and we have a low over/under of 42. Is there anybody we like on the Kansas City side of the ball against this Denver D?
Nope.
Who would they be?
Yeah, right, exactly. I think some people will see West priced pretty low, and he had a good game. But guys, he's going against the Denver D this week. It's definitely not a play this week.
They're second in DVOA against the run.
Yeah.
I know he's going to see some volume out of the backfield, but I'm not touching them. And man, the Denver side of the ball presents some interesting plays because early on in the year when the Kansas City pass defense was missing some guys, it was just like we looked up, week 2, week 3, week 4, who's playing Kansas City, so we can get them in our lineups. But the last few weeks they've been middle of the pack in the league versus the pass, so they don't present the cake matchup that they once did. But their slot corner is still pretty bad. So Emmanuel Sanders runs out of the slot quite a bit, and he roasted them in week 2 for I think like 24 fantasy points, something like that. So he's a little bit hard to trust right now, though, with Demaryius Thomas seeing the volume, the majority of the targets. So if I was going to go with anyone here, it'd probably be maybe Demaryius and cash. On a site like DraftKings, where you see Demaryius sitting at 7,500 or 7,400, excuse me, he presents a pretty high floor and high ceiling with this matchup. But Emmanuel Sanders is just $100 cheaper.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people will look to Demaryius and say, well, he's only $100 more. He's more talented and just as good as matchup. So why don't I just go Demaryius over Emmanuel? So I'm definitely going to have a lot of exposure to Emmanuel Sanders in a lot of my GPP lineups.
I actually like Demaryius Thomas a lot this week. The Chiefs being middle of the pack in the past few weeks, I think that has a lot to do with them not having Jamal Charles anymore. I think their offense is a lot worse now, so teams aren't having to throw against them as much as they used to anymore in the previous weeks. Denver obviously won't have to pass the ball very much with their defense holding the Chiefs either, but I do like Demaryius Thomas to catch a touchdown before they do go up here.
Yeah, I think you stole my thunder a little bit there, but like the last 4 podcasts we've done, I've been talking about Demaryius Thomas that he's getting the targets. He's 4th in receivers and targets this year. He's getting the targets. He's just not scoring the touchdowns. So I think that's the only reason why people look at him and think he's not producing. He is producing, but just hasn't got the touchdowns. And I'm calling it here that this is definitely the game that he gets a touchdown. He's going to have a good game. He's going to hit his value. I love Demaryius Thomas this week.
Me too.
I'm right there with you. There's just for some reason they haven't been targeting him in the red zone. I guess they really haven't needed to with their defense being so elite, like you guys pointed out. But I'm right there with you guys. This is a prime spot. He's my cash game play from this game. But like I said, with Emmanuel Sanders being $100 cheaper, that's who I'm pivoting to in tournaments, especially with the success he had against his defense in week 2.
When do you think Emmanuel Sanders would be the higher owned guy then because of that?
No, I absolutely not. Not on DraftKings where he's just $100 cheaper. Especially if you look and see like you guys pointed out with the targets and the volume, Demaryius Thomas just presents such a safer floor to me, and with just the recency production with Thomas, like you guys said, I look at DraftKings mainly, especially with PPR. Fantasy points per game, Demaryius Thomas has been almost smashing Emmanuel Sanders' production. So he just presents such a higher floor. So I think the general public would probably just go ahead and roster him for $100 more.
Of the general public, how many people know about who's getting more targets? How many of the general public is actually just going to look at game logs and see the last game?
Quite a bit, man. You'd be surprised how dumb people are.
So don't you think Demaryius Thomas will be lower owned?
No. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Not for $100 cheaper, no. Or $100 more.
Yeah, I think it's a tough call on that one. I do tend to think that people will roster Sanders a little bit more on DraftKings just because they won't look at targets, but they might not necessarily look at targets, but they might look at catches, think of the point per reception, and for $100 cheaper, put in a little bit more Sanders than Thomas on DraftKings. But I think it'll be close. Regardless, I think Thomas is the play this week. I really like Thomas this week.
I agree.
I do as well.
And then what about the Broncos D? Is this a good spot for them?
Great spot.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's always a great spot.
High volume. I mean, they create turnovers. They create sacks. They're at home. Low over under favored. Yeah, fire them up.
I got to ask this question just because it's happened recently, but what do we think about Vernon Davis? Is he worth throwing out in the GPP? Do we think Manning might throw some passes his way now that he's away from the 49ers? He can actually do something?
Manning can't throw anymore. Vernon Davis can't catch anymore. That's just not a good combo.
But he had Sacker pick thrown to him.
What's that?
But he had Sacker pick thrown to him, so there was no way he was going to catch the ball.
I just think Marty wants one of his 49ers or ex-49ers to do well at some point in time this year.
Right.
Manning, go ahead.
I was gonna say I have a Vernon Davis jersey in the closet, and I so badly want to wear it that because he was performing and did something well. So please, somebody tell me he's gonna have a good game sometime soon.
In the past when Manning's had good tight ends, he's definitely liked to get them involved. I don't know about this Denver offense with John Fox being out this year. We saw them throw a lot of screens to Julius Thomas last year and get him involved a lot in the passing game. I don't know. I mean, you're not going to trade for a guy and then just not, and then just leave him on the shelf. So,
am I frozen on your guys' screen?
No, on my screen you're picking your nose.
Oh, am I frozen though?
No, you're black. You're blacked out. You're all blacked out. But anyway, I was saying that you're not going to trade for a guy and then just not get him involved at all. So,
exactly.
I think, and with him putting up a dud last week, I mean, he could be super low owned. Do you know what is Kansas City versus tight ends? Do you know?
I don't off the top of my head. I know they weren't at the very top. I know they weren't one of the best ones out there, but
they're middle of the pack.
Yeah.
They're actually pretty good. Actually, no, they're the best in the league against tight ends. So they're allowing the least fantasy points.
Because they're so bad against receivers.
That's true.
That's a good point. Says the no name face.
I'm working on it, bud.
All right. Well, that's about it for me in this game. Demaryius Thomas, Flash, Emmanuel Sanders, I like for GPP.
All right, let's move on to one of the more interesting games of the night. We have the Patriots versus the Giants. Patriots are favored by 7, and we have I think the highest over-under of 54 points. I think it's probably safe to assume that there's going to be a good amount of passes thrown in this game. What do you think?
Yeah, man. Yeah. Oh, God. I hate the Patriots, man. I hate the I like the Patriots, but I hate them. I wish they would just be like every other team in the NFL and have one or two guys that they use for production, but that's what makes them such a good NFL team. I mean, they're a great real life team, but for fantasy purposes, who's going to go off here? Is it going to be a Gronk week? Is it going to be LeGarrette Blount in the backfield or this White Cat? Actually, I really think I did some deeper digging, and if we have Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie. He's still been playing very well for the Giants. But if what's his name, Prince Amukamara, if Prince Amukamara comes back and he's on the outside, I think Edelman feasts out of the slot, and that's one of the spots that you can count on for production out of this Patriots offense.
Yeah,
is the Nakamura a shadow receiver, or does he just stick to that right side?
They've never used him as a shadow ever in his career in New York. So I mean, if they were going to do it,
he was a shadow. He was a shadow cornerback at Nebraska.
Yes, yeah. That's a good point. He most definitely was, and he's very talented. He can do it. If he's back this week, you want to pay attention to Twitter, pay attention to social media, everything you can to find out if they're planning on doing that, because those kinds of things are normally leaked. But with that being said, that puts if Amukamara's not playing, that means Edelman will probably see DRC, who's still pretty good in his own right. So I'm not going to really go there. That would leave probably some opening for Gronk, but with his price, he's 8K on DraftKings, and he's only seeing upwards of 8 targets the last few games. I don't know if that's just been a product of them not having to throw a whole lot. But if I'm going to get exposure to this offense, I'm going all in some Brandon LaFell, because if Amukamara is still out, that leaves Hosley on LaFell, and we saw what Cooks did to Hosley a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
What about Jonas Gray?
Who?
Jonas Gray behind LeGarrette Blount. You don't think they give the whole offense to Blount, do they?
He's not even there anymore.
He's not there anymore?
No.
Yes.
Yeah.
James White, and they were trying out Pierre Thomas.
James White. That's who I was thinking, not Jonas
James
Gray.
White and Brandon Bolden.
Bolden, yeah, that's the other guy.
Yeah, James White and Brandon Bolden.
What do you guys think of James White?
You know, I've heard a lot of people talking about James White and just thinking he'll automatically go into that Deion Lewis role. And he could, but you know, I think Lewis was kind of like a crutch for Tom Brady when he needed to get out of trouble or need a short gain. He'd look to Lewis. I actually think in this type of scenario, rather than look too much at James White, he's going to go to somebody else he trusts quite a bit. And I actually do like Gronk quite a bit in this matchup. Giants give up the third most fantasy points to tight ends, and I think he's going to be more the crutch for Brady this week, more than anything. So I know he's high priced, so you got to be creative if you want to get him in your lineup. But
Tom Coughlin is a great coach in his own right, though. You don't think Gronk is the guy he singles out from this offense here?
If Prince Amukamara is still out, I do. I think DRC has been playing a lot of safety this year, and I think he sticks to the middle of the field and just tries to take out Gronk. And like I said earlier, if Amukamara is still out, this has a big Edelman week written all over it with his targets. And in your cash games, guys, you definitely want some exposure to this kind of offense. So you want to get it as safely and preferably as cheap as possible. Edelman's production, he hasn't had 2 touchdown games in several weeks. I think we were also him back in like week 4 or week 5 where he had a 2 touchdown game and just went off. He hadn't done that in a while, and Gronk hasn't done that in a while either. So this is just one of those games where you're just going to really have to be pinned to social media, see who's covering who's in, who's out. But as of right now, I'm on DraftKings where Brandon LaFell is 4,100, and he's going to be covered by Jaron Hosley, who Cooks just burnt a couple weeks ago. That's where I'm getting my exposure to this offense.
Shane Vereen, revenge game?
I'm all about it in some GPPs. All about it. I mean, they're going to be throwing a lot, especially on DraftKings where it's a PPR site. I'm all over that. Narrative Street. Sign me up.
What about some Ruben Randall? Belichick is going to take Beckham out of this game. What about some Ruben Randall?
You stole my thunder, man. ODB is going to be guarded by Malcolm Butler, the Patriots Super Bowl hero who's one of the top cornerbacks this year in Pro Football Focus DVOA. This dude's trying to prove himself legit. I mean, what was he doing? He wasn't bagging groceries a couple years ago, but he was doing something, working like a minimum wage job. Went from minimum wage job to Super Bowl hero last year.
I remember hearing that
against the Seahawks, and got that interception. And then this year, like, this dude's on a mission, man. I'm looking at his grades right now, and he's just been shutting down some of the top wide receivers in the NFL. So I don't like ODB at all because they've been using Malcolm Butler as a shadow guy. But Ruben Randall, especially on DraftKings, is 3,900. I'm going to make a lot of GPPs this week because there's so many guys I like. Ruben Randall at 3,900, I'm all about, and some Vereen.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think those are the only plays. I mean, I think a lot of people will want to play ODB, but as you mentioned, I think he'll be shut down. So really the only options you have to look at are Randall, Vereen, maybe Donnell. But yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be some production on the Giants side of the ball, but I think it really only comes from Vereen or Randall. And then, go ahead.
I actually like Blunt quite a bit for tournaments, man. I played him last week in a lot of my tournaments. The dude's still cheap on DraftKings, and man, oh god, I hate him as a person. He's a walking trash bag, but the dude, he can just break tackles and throw guys off left and right like they're nothing. And they're going to be scoring a lot of points. They're favored here. So that's another good cheap way to get exposure, but you just can't trust the Patriots backfield in cash games. Cash games, Edelman, Gronk, depending on if Amukamura is in, who you're going to play here. Other than that, my play on this team right now is I'm all about some LaFell.
Yeah, I agree with you on Blunt there too. I think this could be an opportunity. You know, their over under is 54 points and they're favored by 7. I could see them getting up quickly and trying to use Blunt a little bit more than usual. Plus, with Lewis being out, he's probably going to get even more carries. I know White will get some, but I could see this being a 25 carry game for him. And if they're near the goal line, he's got a very good chance of scoring 2 touchdowns.
Maybe 3. With this run, he's got 3 upside in this.
Yeah. And he's priced low too, so it's a pretty good spot there.
You want to get some exposure, and in tournaments is the best way.
Yep. All right, guys, let's move on to our last 2 games here. We have the Cardinals versus the Seahawks. Seahawks are favored by 3, and we have over under 45. I feel like this is going to be a really good NFL game. I'm not so sure it'll be a great fantasy game. What do you guys feel the same way?
I feel the same way. I do like one guy from this game, and it is Jimmy Graham. Arizona's so good at shutting down receivers with Patrick Patterson and Honey Badger and other guys that it really forces quarterbacks to throw to the middle, and Jimmy Graham is really all the Seahawks have.
I'm glad you said that because I kind of felt the same way going into this. The Cardinals in the past when they've had Todd Bowles as the head coach last year, this was a spot for tight ends at feast. They've been a little bit better this year. They have moved Honey Badger around and put him on tight ends at times, but this year he's been staying on the outside a little bit. So Jimmy Graham I like for tournaments. Other than this, I don't like this game at all. Like you said, Marty, this is two good defenses, 2 good smash mouth offenses and defenses going at it. You might want to watch it, but I'm not going to play any. I don't like this game at all for fantasy.
Yeah, I agree. Basically the only name I had down was Graham too. So I think we're across the board. That's the play we're thinking of. Other than that, all right, let's go into our last game on the slate. We have the Texans versus the Bengals. The Bengals are favored by 10.5 at home, and there's an over/under 47. With that being said, do we like Hoyer? Do we like Hopkins? Is there anything on Texans that you like in this game?
Nope.
No.
You gotta like Hopkins just for his pure volume. 14 targets a game. There's only a couple of the wide receivers in the NFL seeing that. This is a bad matchup. He's not. He's the second highest priced receiver on the slate, I think, on DraftKings. So I don't know what his price is on FanDuel. I just don't see the need to go there this week. He does present a pretty safe floor. I might get some exposure in tournaments. Then again, I probably won't. I just don't see. I don't really like this game a whole lot either.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way there. I like Hopkins just because of the production he puts up every week, but I just feel like there's better plays this week, and he's on FanDuel, I believe, is the highest wide receiver, and so if I'm going to spend that money, I better make sure I'm going to get the production for it, and I just don't know. It's a great matchup here. Cincinnati side of the ball, with them being up, you generally would want being up at home, high-scoring game. You kind of would want to play the running back, but in this case, it's Hill and Bernard. Do you guys feel safer of one over the other?
Neither.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Hill, man, I played Hill last week in a juicy spot versus the Browns, and he just totally disappointed. And last week the coaching staff was saying we need to get Jeremy, more involved early and often when you give him the ball, because he's explosive. No, you don't. No, you don't. You put Gio in for one play, and the dude busted a 30-yard touchdown. It's just so tilting because you say stuff like that, and it makes me want to roster Jeremy Hill because he's going to be grounded and pounded all game. And then you have a guy like Gio Bernard who's just so explosive and quick and can get involved in the passing game. I don't see why these guys even still use Jeremy Hill. I don't see the need. They should really trade him away to a team that needs him, and maybe get some help on the defensive line or offensive line side of the ball. But anyway, I don't like either of those guys for cash or tournaments.
I agree. What about Eifert or Green?
Love Eifert.
It's a good spot for Eifert. He's probably gonna, get the targets and production. Just not my favorite tight end play of the week.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people will be on him, especially with what he did last week. So I'll probably look elsewhere though.
He's up with his recent production, so with other guys being in better spots and having the same amount of targets, it's just off my board.
Yeah. All right. Anything else from this game?
Nope.
All right. That about wraps up for us on this slate then. Let's go through any Q&A real quickly. Guys, have you got any questions maybe on Twitter or on Google Hangout? Any questions from anyone?
I do have one. For 1 p.m. only cash games from Gareth Ridley, at DFS Sweats. Man, thank you so much for watching. He watches every week and has a question just about every week. But he wants to know who we like the most, 1 p.m. cash games, Antonio Brown, Des Bryant, or Randall Cobb.
I say Cobb. I don't think Brown's going to get the production that he's had in the past, especially with Landry as quarterback, and Bryant. I don't feel great with Castle as quarterback. At least Cobb has Rodgers thrown to him.
I want to say Bryant because of volume, but to stay safe, I'm going to go Cobb.
Yeah.
Cobb's got the best matchup of the three with that high over-under. Cobb would be my favorite one. If you're playing tournaments, go Dez.
Yeah.
Any other questions you guys have?
Not on my side.
Come on, guys. Let's fire up some Q&A here.
I can start asking my own questions. All right. Well, let's go ahead and move on over to our top plays of the week. So, Kyle, I'll let you lead it off here. Who's your top quarterback of the week?
Blake Bortles.
All right. And Pat, your top quarterback?
Since he took mine, I can't believe. Oh God. I'm gonna have to go. What's his name? You're probably gonna take him from me, Marty, if I don't go ahead and spit him out.
Because Bortles is mine, so I'm gonna have to make one up after you're done.
Where are my notes on this game? Oh, do you like that?
Oh no.
You like that? I like Kirk Cousins to come back on having one of those games, man.
I don't like that, but
I like Cousins to come back here. I like Cousins.
All right. Well, I don't feel great about quarterbacks this week. I mean, last couple of weeks, I think we've had the benefit of a couple different quarterbacks and great matchups. So I don't feel a lot other than Bortles this week. But I guess I'd have to go with Aaron Rodgers just because I think there's going to be a lot of points. Again, I would lean towards Cobb as the receiver he's going to throw to, but regardless, I think he's going to put up a good amount of points this week.
One last note on that game. James Jones I just saw this on my notes. James Jones has faced Rashawn Mathis in the past and has had a couple multiple touchdown games in his career against this guy. So something about him playing Detroit, James Jones always seems to get going. I like Cobb for the safety, but James Jones.
He didn't have as much gray hair as he does now when he played those games.
Probably not, but I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if he had 2 touchdown upside here.
I agree.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to running backs. Pat, who's your top running back this week?
I'm gonna go Todd Gurley, man.
The
Oh,
Gurley man. Okay.
Gurley, man.
All right. Well, I'm going to go D'Angelo Williams. I think it's a great spot for him this week.
Damn you.
All
I'm
right, Kyle.
going to go muscle hamster, Doug Martin.
Martin. Okay.
I
All right.
like
Then for wide receiver, I'll go ahead and I've already said who my favorite pick is this week, but I'm going to go ahead and say Demaryius Thomas once again. I really think this is the game that he breaks out, and I'll put all my eggs in the basket in this one and say he has a great game. Kyle, who's your top wide receiver?
Top receiver, Stephon Diggs.
On Diggs. Okay. And Pat.
You guys left it obvious for me here. I mean, Allen Robinson for sure for cash games. But man, I love me some Rashad Matthews from Miami going against Toast.
Yeah.
Byron Maxwell for GPPs, man. I hope he gets toasted again this week.
He probably will be. All right, Kyle, top tight end for this week?
Tyler Eifert.
Okay. Putting up 3 touchdowns, 2 games in a row. And Pat, who's your top tight end for this week?
Jordan Reed, by far. Jordan Reed's just too many targets, safe floor, high volume. Great.
Yeah. And I'm going to go with Jimmy Graham. We talked about him. I think it's a good matchup for him in this game here. I think he's going to be one of the main offensive weapons here. I like Jimmy Graham. All right, and Pat, your favorite D this week?
Favorite D? I'm going to go with the Packers at home in Lambeau.
All right, okay. I really like the Rams. I think they're priced pretty high on FanDuel, but I think they will get the value from it.
I'm going to go with the Broncos.
There we go.
Favorite kicker?
Yeah.
Finkel.
Sometimes
No,
it's
seriously, I like Hopkins, the Redskins kicker, going against the Saints. Kirk Cousins is garbage. I think they're going to end up having to settle for a lot of field goals after driving the ball.
I could see that because I don't think that game's going to be as high scoring as Vegas is projecting here.
Are we really picking kickers here, or
who's the GPP kicker of the week?
Yeah.
You know what? Fire it up. Mark my words. Cairo Santos. We wrote no one down on the Kansas City side of the ball against Denver. You guys like the Denver defense. Mark my words. Cairo Santos kicks at least 3 field goals this week.
You like?
Don't do it.
Dude, GPP kicker special. You heard it here first. Cairo Santos. If this goes off, my PayPal me is on my Twitter bio.
Don't do it.
I think we lost Marty. His computer's been dying on juice this whole time. But if you guys have any questions throughout the week, you can hit me up at DFS _ WizP. You can hit up Kyle at DFS _ WizKyle. We're on throughout the week covering NBA games, and we'll be on right before Sunday, right before games lock on Sunday. So please hit us up with your questions. And as for me, for Marty, for Kyle, thanks for watching, guys.
See ya.
Peace.